You are fake!
Are fake.
You will regret this.
You should have complied when we told you to. Now look at what you made me do.
1 second, he was just reaching for a bottle of water. The next, he was on the hot sidewalk in handcuffs, all because of the uniform on his back. But what the two officers in that gas station on Maple Street didn't know, what they really missed, was who they had just put their hands on. They thought they were dragging a fake, a common criminal, but they were about to find out they'd just tangled with an 11-year veteran of the U.S. Army Reserve, Sergeant Marcus Reed. The air was calm, just a regular Tuesday evening stop after a long day at Fort McPherson. Marcus was looking sharp too, uniform clean, metal shining on his chest. He was just about to pay when the sirens came out of nowhere, cutting through the quiet like a rusty knife. 2 police cruisers came screeching into the lot, tires smoking and lights flashing red and blue off the windows. Everyone inside that little corner store froze. Then the doors flew open. 2 white officers stormed in, hands already on their weapons, looking like they were expecting a gang war, not a guy buying a drink. Officer Dean Harper. Tall, lean, with a jaw so thick it looked like he was constantly chewing bricks. And his partner, Officer Greg Simons, shorter and rounder, who looked like the kind of guy who gets his kicks from flexing a badge he probably didn't earn. They didn't even look at anyone else. They were gunning straight for Marcus. Harper's voice, booming and instantly aggressive, cut through the silence. Out of the store now. Hands where I can see them. Chaos. A woman dropped her chips. The cashier hit the deck. Marcus, confused but calm, raised his hands. What in the world is happening? Before he could even finish the thought, Harper delivered the line that would change everything. You're under suspicion of impersonating military personnel. Impersonating? A decorated soldier, a black man in a crisply pressed uniform, is immediately a fake? Of course he is. Because when some people see a man of color achieving honor, they don't see a hero. They just see a challenge to the script they wrote in their heads. Marcus didn't even have time to say more than, "I am in the army," before Simon stepped up, a little too eager, and twisted his arm behind his back. The cuffs snapped shut with a sickening clink. The water bottle, his only mission, dropped and rolled away, forgotten. Marcus kept his voice even. "You're making a mistake." Harper just gave him that smug, cold smirk. Yeah, they all say that. Before we go any further, comment where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe because tomorrow's story is one you don't want to miss. They didn't give Marcus a chance to walk. They dragged him out onto the sidewalk and forced him to his knees on the hot concrete. Cars slowed, phones popped out. The whole thing was being filmed right then and there. But Marcus? He didn't fight back. He kept his head up, eyes focused, knowing the power of the uniform he wore. He knew these 2 bullies were about to learn a lesson they'd never forget. Marcus was kneeling, his spine ramrod straight despite the humiliation. The officers thought they had won, but he was already moving pieces on a chessboard they hadn't even realized was in play. Quietly, Marcus spoke. "I'd like to make one phone call." Simons laughed, a dry, nasty sound. "To who? Your lawyer?" The disrespect was palpable, but Marcus's answer wasn't a joke. "My commanding officer." Now that was an interesting twist, wasn't it? Did they really think they could brush off a threat like that? They shared a quick look, a dismissive shrug, and told him to go ahead. Big mistake. Huge. Still cuffed, Marcus leaned over and managed to fish his phone out of his pocket. You could practically hear the dial tone ringing with impending doom. He tapped one name on the screen, Colonel Nathaniel Briggs. The second the colonel picked up, Marcus laid it out, sharp and clean. "Sir, this is Sergeant Reed. I've been wrongfully detained. They claim I'm impersonating military." A beat of silence hung in the air, the kind of silence that usually precedes an earthquake. Then came the voice of a man who didn't raise his tone because he didn't need to. Deep, slow, and deadly serious. "Stay there. I'm on my way." Click. Marcus hung up, looked the 2 officers right in the eyes, and delivered the knockout punch with complete calm. "Help is coming." They just laughed again. Weren't they cute standing there, oblivious to the fact that their entire careers had just been signed, sealed, and delivered to the shredder? Exactly 7 minutes later, the first shadow fell. It wasn't the sound that announced their arrival. It was the sheer presence. 3 black SUVs, the kind that scream government, do not approach, rolled up to the gas station. No sirens. They didn't need the flash. They were the fire. Men in dark suits stepped out, all wearing sharp uniforms and military badges that outranked Harper and Simons just by existing. The loud traffic literally quieted down. The crowd parted like the Red Sea. Then, the back door of the lead SUV opened. This wasn't a sergeant, a captain, or a major. This was Colonel Nathaniel Briggs. Tall, silver-haired, walking with the quiet, zero-tolerance confidence of a man who's never wasted a second on a fool. His uniform was a blinding map of ribbons and medals, more honor than Harper and Simons would ever see in their miserable lives. He walked straight past the bystanders, straight past the SUVs, and right up to the two officers. Colonel Briggs stood there, a tidal wave of military authority in the middle of a dingy gas station lot. He didn't scream or flex. He just asked one question, his voice cutting through the tension like glass. "Which one of you is Harper?" Dean Harper, the tall, smug one, raised his hand slowly, his confidence draining out of him like air from a punctured tire. The colonel didn't need volume. His rank spoke for itself. "I'm Colonel Nathaniel Briggs. That man you've got cuffed? He's Sergeant Marcus Reed. He's been serving this country for 11 years. You just put a decorated soldier in cuffs on the sidewalk. In his full uniform." Greg Simons, the rounder one, looked like he was chewing on his tongue. He swallowed hard. "We thought he was fake," he mumbled, trying to sound professional, but failing miserably. The colonel's eyes narrowed. "Did you ask for ID?" Simons quickly snapped, "No, sir." The rhetorical heat was rising, building the suspense just perfectly. "Oh, you didn't ask for ID? Did you just assume a black man in uniform was playing dress-up?" Colonel Briggs stepped closer, his shadow falling over the terrified officers. "Did you check his badge, his base permit, or even ask his name?" Simon stayed silent this time, because the answer was a clear, career-ending no. Now, here's the kicker, the ugly truth laid bare. You racially profiled one of our own, and now both of you are under federal review for misconduct. This was moving at light speed, wasn't it? Before the officers could stammer out another pathetic excuse, a military lawyer stepped forward like an avenging angel, papers in hand. "You're being placed on administrative leave, effective immediately. Your badges, weapons, and radios. Hand them over." Harper's thick jaw finally dropped. Wait, this is a mistake." The colonel just looked at him with chilling coldness. "The only mistake," Briggs said, his voice a low growl, "was thinking you could treat a soldier like a criminal because of the color of his skin. That was it. The ultimate mic drop. The end of their little show of authority. What a joke. Two rent-a-cops just found out they messed with the wrong veteran." The crowd watching this whole spectacle, the gawkers, the ones filming on their phones, gasped as the reality sank in. Marcus, the man who had been kneeling, the man they thought was a common criminal, was watching his own vindication play out in real time. Colonel Briggs turned from the two pathetic officers and walked straight over to Marcus, who was still kneeling, cuffed and dusted with concrete. "Get up, Sergeant," the colonel said, gently helping him to his feet. "This shouldn't have happened, but it will never happen again." Cheers erupted from the onlookers. People clapped and yelled, "That's justice!" Simons and Harper, their faces pale, were then escorted away by internal affairs. They weren't in handcuffs, but they walked with their heads down, their careers, their power shattered. Marcus stood tall, the dust on his uniform nothing compared to the untouched pride of a man who served his country. By the next morning, the video was everywhere. The arrest, the colonel's arrival, it was on TV, TikTok, and Facebook. Salute Sergeant Reed was trending. Talk shows debated the story, and the mayor herself called a press conference. She stood in front of City Hall and did what was right. "I want to personally apologize to Sergeant Reed," she stated, her voice clear. "What happened was unacceptable. Officers Harper and Simons have been terminated. Not suspended, not transferred, fired." The crowd cheered again. Marcus, watching the news from his couch with a bowl of cereal, finally cracked a smile when the mayor added that he was an example of grace, honor, and patience. A few weeks later, Marcus walked into the police academy. He didn't bring a script. He faced a room full of young, nervous recruits and told them the truth. "Before you put on a badge, remember something," he advised. "Power doesn't make you right. Listening does. Respect does. You see a black man in uniform? That's not your enemy. That's your brother. Ask before you act." Silence met his words, followed by slow, building applause. Marcus finally got what he truly wanted, not revenge, but respect, justice, and his story heard loud and clear. He reminded the world that respect is a right earned, not questioned, and that sometimes the strongest response is a calm, quiet dignity. If you learned a lesson in justice and respect from Sergeant Reed's story, make sure you hit the like button, share this video, and tell us in the comments what you think the greatest form of respect is.